Well, I've had a lot of people interested when it's been on the back of my boat, and there's a few people asked about it on YouTube as well. I thought I'd done a bit of a piece on it for YouTube, but I couldn't find it the other day, so I'm going to do another one. This is a little dinghy I got to replace an inflatable I had. I was really sick of the inflatables because I just couldn't keep them welded together. Everything falls off them, the transom fell out, the whole thing fell apart, and you're looking at about $2,500 for a decent inflatable. So these little rotor-moulded plastic ones, they're made in Western Australia by Finn Kayaks, and they call them a Spindrift. And they're a great little dinghy. They're bulletproof. They're very stable. I can stand on one side of the dinghy. I can even stand on the gunnel and you wouldn't tip it over. Okay, it's got really good stability because of the catamaran configuration, and it's really pretty bulletproof. Like you don't have to worry about fishing hooks and knives and jetties and oysters and things like that. So I really like it. I think it's a great little thing. 6 horsepower Honda on the back. That does the job. Sort of gets it up on the plane, yeah, it's a great little dinghy. I changed it around a little bit to suit being on my Davit and living life as a tender, and I'll show you what I've done to it. The things I like about the dinghy as it comes from the factory, the first one is the little rope locker up the front and the anchor well, so you can keep your mooring rope, and I keep my anchor in there as well, and that keeps it out away from your feet, always all over the floor in an inflatable, unless they've got some sort of locker. You've got a thwart that runs right down the middle, and of course that is for the tunnel, that accommodates the tunnel in the catamaran, and there's a thwart at the back for sitting on. The transom's quite solid, and you can mount the outboard on there quite well. I've mounted wheels on this one at the back. You can do that, I wouldn't worry about it. You can drag it down the beach really easily. Sometimes the wheels are handy, but I don't use them very much. The other thing I like is the storage areas up forward, so you've got an area there where you can put things that you don't want to get wet. I've got my crab pot over there. I can store my life jackets up under there, save them getting wet. They come with a good set of oars and 2 sets of rollock points. The thing is, these dinghies row very well. They row a lot better than an inflatable anyway. They're a great little boat to row, so I'll row it around a fair bit if I don't want to use the outboard. The other thing I found with it just recently, if you get a stand-up paddleboard paddle, you can actually stand up in them. I stand up in helmet all the time, but you can stand up and use the paddleboard paddle to paddle around like as if you were on a stand-up paddleboard. So if there's something that you don't want to store on the boat as one of those big bulky paddleboards, you can have a dinghy, and if your wife wants a bit of exercise, give her the paddle. She can get out in the dinghy and paddle it around just like she's on a paddleboard, and a lot more stable. You won't fall off this one, whereas you probably fall off a paddleboard at some stage. The changes I've made to the dinghy just to make it a bit more user-friendly as far as a tender on my boat. These rubber they're just high-density rubber mouldings that I bought. I bought them on the Gold Coast somewhere. They were half of a circle, so they're really good to fend you off boats and the side of the boat and things like that. The plastic doesn't really mark, but it's a little bit harder than these. Just make it a lot softer. And up the front here, in my circumstance, I do put the dinghy up under the hull a fair bit, and I put these fenders on the front to stop it knocking around the tunnel of my boat. These handles are part of the boat. This carpet is mine. Other things I did, I got a bit of spiral plastic tube and split it and put it on around the edge of the cockpit. That makes that a lot more user friendly. They come with handles on the back. There's a couple of lifting eyes there. I can't use them in my setup, but they'd be all right on most Davits. So there's one each side on the transom. 2 lifting eyes. I carry a bit of cable to lock the boat up when I'm against the jetty. And the thing I love about these things, you can put them against the jetty and sleep at night. You don't have to worry about them. The carpet on the thwart and the carpet on the floor are all mine. All the carpeting I did myself. The other thing I had to do to make it go up on my davit, I had to put this compression post across the boat, and that's where I lift from. So you see my lifting points here. That's where I actually lift the dinghy from. So I lift off one point, and that gets it up onto my davit, and that does work pretty well. But I have to lift it from down lower for that system to work. In most circumstances, I think the lifting points on the back would be quite acceptable for getting it up on your boat, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. But when I lifted it from here, it tended to pull the side of the boat in a bit, so I put that compression post in to stop that from happening. I did put another lifting point up through the front of the boat here, and depending on what your setup is, I guess you could put them into the deck, but by putting it there, it lifts off both there and the deck, so it makes it nice and solid when you give it a lift. Underneath, I put a good tow point on it, so I've got a towing eye there. I can tow it off that, but if I am towing it, and I try not to tow it too much, I usually tow it off this cleat here. So that's a good solid cleat with a thick a doubler underneath it, and that's what I tow it off. Down under the aft deck, of course, you've got another little storage area. So I've got 2 buckets in the back there. I've got a bag full of flares and tools and things like that, and I've got 2 jerry cans with 5 litres each of fuel in them. So there's a bailing bucket, which is a legal requirement, of course, as well. And there's the fuel tank at the moment. So I'm drawing off that jerry can now. There's the hose running up to the outboard. When this runs out of fuel, I've got another jerry can exactly the same on the other side. And they're all under that aft section that is nice and protected from the sun and the weather, so you don't get too much rain down there. So all in all, I think it's a great little unit. Spindrift Dinghies by Finn Kayaks in Western Australia. Great people to deal with. I'm sure if you contact them, they'll tell you who the agent is wherever you are. And I can recommend them. I definitely don't miss having to weld things back onto the inflatable. Have a look at them and see what you think. I think they're a great little addition to any boat as a tender.